So when Arylic reached out and offered to send me the B50 for me to try out and review it and let you guys know my thoughts on it, I said, sure, I haven't been using my speakers anyway for over a year. Let me give it a shot. And this device comes with one very important feature that I think you absolutely need. If you want to be able to turn on your DAC amp when you turn on your TV or Apple TV, and also to control the volume, that is the HDMI ARC connection on the back of this unit. That is absolutely key. And the HDMI connector with ARC, which is also known as the audio return channel, enables your TV to send back sound to this unit, and therefore it can send it to my speakers. And so the way I have it set up is I have my Apple TV connected to my TV, and then I have the Arylic B50 connected to the HDMI ARC port on my LG TV, and it then connects to the HDMI ARC port on this B50. And now I'm going to show you how well this works. I'm actually going to turn off my Apple TV. I'm going to see my TV will automatically turn off, and the Arylic B50 will go into standby mode. And that means that the unit is not going to be on, using up power and dissipating heat, which was one big problem I had with my old DAC amp. And so here we go. Let me give it a try. And now I'm going to power off my Apple TV. TV turns off, and the Arylic B50, as you see here, the red light, it's on standby mode, which is really great. It's not using a power or generating heat, which is really great. This is exactly the setup I wanted. Now that everything is off or in standby, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my Apple TV, and you'll see the Arylic B50 will automatically switch to the HDMI ARC input option, and the sound will work. So let's go ahead and turn it on. And here we go. You see the purple light here, it just changed to HDMI ARC, and there we go. All right, and really quickly, I'm gonna let you guys preview the sound coming out of the Arylic B50. I think it sounds really great. And you're gonna see I'm gonna be able to control the volume going up and down just straight from my Apple TV remote. All right, so let's get right into the rest of this review video where I'm gonna unbox it and show you guys everything that you get with this unit, as well as go over the app and all the settings that I recommend, because out of the box, the sound is a little bit too flat. So I'm gonna tell you guys what settings to change to make it sound the best that it could. But before that, really quick, Arylic did set up a discount code for all my viewers for you guys to get a 15% discount using code ZadiusTech1. I'll show it up on the screen right now. And all you have to do to go ahead and get the 15% discount for the Arylic B50 is go ahead and click on the Amazon link down in the description of this video, and then add the Arylic B50 to your cart on Amazon. And at the very end at checkout, go ahead and input discount code ZadiusTech1 to get your 15% off. Now this discount code is only good for a week from the release of this video, so make sure to get your 15% if the Arylic B50 is something that you think will work great for you. All right, let's go to the next part of this video. Hey everyone, this is the Arylic B50 wireless stereo amplifier. And the great thing about this device is that it can both transmit and receive audio wirelessly. Now there's a couple features right off the bat that you should know about. It does support aptX HD codec, which is great. It's gonna give you some great audio. It does support 50 watts per channel for 2 channels for your speakers. And it does have a TV ARC HDMI connection, which makes this perfect to use with your home audio system. That means it's gonna cut down the number of wires. And you could also control your TV and this device with just one remote. You can power it on and off, as well as control the volume, which I think is a definite plus. And you can also use an app to customize all the settings of this Arylic B50. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Arylic B50. It does come with a user manual. It also comes with this one-page guide that shows you how to receive and transmit Bluetooth audio, as well as where to go to download the app to control your Arylic B50. And here we have the Arylic B50 unit itself. As we can see, it's very simple design. It's an all black metal enclosure with white lettering. And here's a quick look at the back of the unit. But we'll go ahead and come back to this and take a closer look. Let's see what else is in the box. So it looks like we have some accessories here. So we do have a standard power cable. We also have 2 antennas for the Bluetooth transmitter and receiver. And we also have a remote control with access to lots of buttons and features. And in this box, we have the power adapter, and it's pretty much your standard size power adapter with a little LED here to let you know that it's on. Let's go ahead and install these Bluetooth antennas. Alright, this is what it looks like with the Bluetooth antennas on. This is the front of the case, side view, the back where all the connectors are, and finally this is the bottom when we do have some rubber feet here to protect your desk surface. Okay, so looking at the back of the unit, we have the power connector which goes here, and then we have positive and negative terminals for your right and left channels. We do have a ground terminal right here in the center. Then we have some RCA connectors next. We have a left and right for phono in, as well as a left and right for line in. Next, we have an RCA connector for an active subwoofer that you can connect there. And then we have an optical in connector there. And here's that handy HDMI connector with the ARC capability that's gonna definitely help you out if you're connecting this up to your home theater system. Just please note that this HDMI ARC connection here only supports PCM audio. It does not support Dolby audio, so just keep that in mind when purchasing this unit. Next, you have a USB-A connection to plug in your USB disc. For example, if you wanted to connect up your digital audio files, you can connect it up there. Following that, we have a USB-C DAC connection for you to connect this up to your computer or laptop. At the very end here, we have a reset button. And I would like to note that the Arylic B50 does not come with any cables at all, as far as audio cables or even a USB-C cable. So you will have to purchase that separately. And as far as the design and build, they kept it simple. Again, just an all black metal enclosure. Now let's take a look at the front of the unit, and you have a very nice switch for on and off. At the left here, you also have an infrared sensor there in the front. You have an LED for standby, an LED for Bluetooth, line, phono, optical, HDMI ARC, USB, and DAC. So depending on what you're using, it will light up here in the front. You do have a volume control, and I don't know if you can hear it. It does have little steps in between. And you could also press this knob in to get into the different modes of the B50 from Arylic. And so with the volume knob, if you do a short press, it's gonna change between the different input sources. If you do a long press, it will go ahead and go into standby mode. And having a standby mode as well as the HDMI ARC capability on the B50 are definitely gonna go a long way with it working flawlessly with your home theater system. And even having the low power standby feature is great because I really don't like leaving devices on because they produce heat and use up your electricity. So now let me get into the audio I/O on this device, give you some more information. And as I mentioned before, the TV ARC HDMI feature only supports PCM. It does not support Dolby audio, but the CEC function is supported. So again, you're gonna be able to turn this device on and off with just your TV's remote, and you can also control the volume. So that's gonna be really great. And as far as using a USB disk drive on the back of this device, it does support storage formats of FAT16, FAT32, up to 128 gigabytes. As far as the codecs it supports MP3, MP4, WMA, MOV, M4A, AAC, FLAC files up to 96 kilohertz by 24-bit. If you connect up the USB DAC for your PC, then the sample rate for that will be 48 kilohertz. As for the subwoofer out, it does support a max 3-volt RMS output, and the frequency response will be 250 hertz. And as I mentioned before, for the speaker output, you get 50 watts per channel at 4 ohms. Now this unit doesn't actually weigh that much. It weighs about 900 grams, which is great. As far as the size goes, it's 185 by 155 by 50 millimeters. Now let's talk about these Bluetooth antennas. So this device actually supports transmitting and receiving Bluetooth, and it supports the Bluetooth 5.2 standard. For transmitting, it can actually transmit to up to 2 devices, whether it be Bluetooth speakers, headphones, or earbuds. For receiving Bluetooth, it can actually connect up to 2 Bluetooth transmitting devices, and the codecs available for Bluetooth audio are aptX HD, aptX Low Latency, aptX AD, AAC, and SBC. The one notable thing that's missing from this wireless stereo amplifier versus my existing one is that it is missing a headphone output. Although I must admit that the headphone output on my existing amplifier is not very powerful. Alright, so let's jump right into setting up the Go Control app to control your Arylic B50. What you want to do is go to your app store, whether it's on Android or Apple, and just type in Go Control and press search. And the one you want is this one right here. It says Go Control, and then you're going to want to go ahead and download and open it up. Now you could create an account, but you don't need to. I'm going to just go ahead and click skip. And at this point, you want to make sure that your Arylic B50 is set to the Bluetooth input. And once you do that, go ahead and go to your settings, go to Bluetooth, and go ahead and connect to the B50. And then you should see the B50 show up as you see here. And go ahead and select the device. And it's going to allow you to control that device remotely from the app. And so just go over a few things here. On the top right is your settings. As we can see, a few different things. You could rename your device if you wanted to. You can choose to have the LEDs on and off. Another thing you could do is set up the volume steps. So if you wanted to go up 3 notches when you press volume up, you would set that, or you could decrease it to 2 or 1, whatever works best for you. And next you see the firmware version. Now my unit came with firmware version 50. However, I did upgrade to version 52 as I was having some occasional problems with the standby mode not coming out of sleep when I would turn on my Apple TV and TV. Now there is a newer firmware version 56. However, I don't recommend you install the version 56 as I'm making this video, as some people have reported that it has bricked their system. So if you are going to upgrade the firmware, I will say stick to version 52. You also have a link to the user manual, and you can set it to light or dark. Let's go ahead and keep it at light. I think it'll be easier for you guys to see. And you can set the different colors as well. And then you have the app version. That's important. You want to be running the latest app version so that you have all the options available to you. Now let's go back here, and here, depending on what input is set, you can do different things. So if you have it on Bluetooth, here you see that I've already paired my MacBook Pro to this device, and you can connect a second device, and this enables you to play your music from your MacBook Pro, for example, to be sent out to the Arylic B50 and then play out through your speakers, which is really great. Then of course you have line in, phono, optical, TV ARC, and TV ARC is the one that I use. That's the absolute best method to hook up your TV because it does have that audio return channel, and it's going to support things like going to standby and automatically, powering down, and then it will automatically power on when you turn on your TV if your TV supports HDMI ARC. And you want to make sure that you connect your HDMI cable coming from the Arylic B50 to your TV on the HDMI ARC HDMI port, because not all the HDMI ports on your TV will have that available. Next, if you wanted to stick in a USB in the back with your MP3s and play that, you can absolutely do that. And you can also set this up as a USB DAC connected up to your laptop or computer and use it as a DAC device, and play your music from your computer or laptop wired to your speakers. But I'm going to go ahead and put it back on TV ARC. Now the very first thing I recommend that you do when you get your device is go down to this sound section here, but you actually want to go to the EQ setting. And I recommend you just stick to the preset EQs. And when you get the unit, it starts up with a flat frequency response. And I think you'll want to change this. I highly recommend you want to change this because it just sounds very flat, neutral, and your music and TV shows and movies are not going to sound very exciting. So I recommend that you go through the different ones here. You can, click through classical, pop, jazz, rock, and vocal. So if you really wanted to focus on vocals, you could select vocal. But for me, the ones that worked out for me was jazz and rock. I ended up choosing rock because that worked out the best for me, had the right amount of bass and so on. And what I really like about the B50 is that the treble sounds very good. And you can also use the EQ settings to give it a little bit more of a bass boost, which is really nice. Now, if you are familiar with EQing your equipment, you can go ahead and use a custom EQ and go through the different bands here and send that up. But again, if you're not familiar with that, I recommend just stick to the presets. And then you can manage the sound settings a little bit easier by adding a little bit more treble, for example, increasing the mids, or maybe the treble's too sharp, you can reduce that. You want more bass, you can go ahead and increase that, give you a nice rumble on the deep end. You can set up the max volume, and then you have your crossover setting if you're dealing with a subwoofer. And one cool feature is this deep bass feature. It really adds a lot of bass, and unfortunately this little slider here that says intensity doesn't really do much. Even after upgrading to firmware version 52, I don't really notice any difference when you move the slider. So I would just recommend that you keep the bass off and control your bass from this slider up here. But honestly, the rock preset EQ works perfectly fine for me. I think I did add a little bit of bass, but other than that, it works great. So yeah, it's really nice to have the app available for you to control all these extra features, such as, controlling and fine-tuning the treble, mids, and bass on your B50 unit to make it sound just the way you want it to. And, the fact that you can go ahead and upgrade your firmware easily just by using a USB drive, download the latest firmware, pop it on your USB drive, pop it in the back, and just set it on the USB input. And then you actually will get prompted on this app to go ahead and upgrade your firmware. It's a very easy, seamless process. But again, avoid upgrading to version 56 of the firmware for now, until we get a clear picture from Arylic on them addressing the issues that some of the people are having with it. All right, so that covers the app, and back into the video. So here are my final thoughts on the Arylic B50 stereo amplifier. It actually worked really great for me in my scenario where I wanted to hook up to my TV and to use it with my home theater system. The HDMI ARC feature on this thing was just an absolute game changer. It did exactly what I needed to do, which is to go into standby when my TV and Apple TV were off, and to automatically turn on and set itself to the HDMI input, and to also let me be able to control the volume using my Apple TV remote, using, again, the HDMI ARC feature. It worked out great. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, the B50 made my home theater system family friendly, and again, saved my sanity, because now everything just works. When someone in my family turns on the Apple TV, this automatically turns on and the sound comes out of my speakers. Works great. I must admit that I did have some occasional issues where the unit would not wake up when my TV and Apple TV would turn on. But from what I've read in the Arylic forums, it seems to be an issue with not the B50, but actually the LG TVs implementation of the HDMI ARC. And again, it works beautifully the majority of the time, but every now and then it will have that issue where it doesn't turn on automatically, and all I do is turn off the unit, turn it back on, and put it on ARC. But it doesn't happen often enough where it bothers me that I have to, stop what I'm doing and help my family set that up. But I did recently upgrade the firmware to firmware version 52, and I haven't had that problem since. So maybe upgrading the firmware may help those with an LG TV in similar situations. But yeah, other than that, all the features work perfectly.